The blade of betrayal never announces its arrival. It is felt long after the wound is inflicted. You search for loud warnings, the raised voice, the open lie, but you are looking in the wrong direction. The deadliest threats are not born in storms, but in the unnerving calm that precedes them. I will teach you not to hear the thunder, but to feel the change in the air. There exists a common and deeply flawed approach to the specter of betrayal. It is the path of the majority, the way of the reactive mind. This mind lives in a state of perpetual low-grade fear. It is a mind that has been wounded before and now sees shadows in every corner, hears whispers in every silence. It operates not from a position of strength but from a crouched posture of defense. The person walking this path becomes a frantic detective in their own life. They scrutinize text messages, searching for a subtle shift in tone. They analyze a partner's choice of words, a friend's moment of hesitation, a colleague's compliment, treating each interaction as evidence to be logged and cross-referenced. They hunt for red flags, for inconsistencies, for the slip of the tongue that will finally confirm the anxieties that haunt them. This is the weakness of the conventional path. It is an existence defined by suspicion. You believe you are being vigilant, that you are protecting yourself. In truth, you have become the jailer of your own peace. Your energy is spent not on building fortresses of trust with worthy individuals, but on inspecting the cracks in crumbling walls you should have abandoned long ago. This feverish search for clues is a strategic blunder of the highest order. Why? Because it surrenders the ultimate advantage: control. By focusing on what another person might do, you are reacting to a future they dictate. You have given them command of your emotional terrain. Every action they take or fail to take sends tremors through your state of mind. You are a ship without a captain, tossed about on the waves of another's potential disloyalty. This is not strategy. This is slavery to fear. The herd believes that by looking for the signs of the wolf, they can avoid being devoured. But they spend so long staring into the darkness of the forest that they fail to notice they have wandered into a trap of their own making. The greatest deception is the one you play upon yourself. The belief that paranoia is the same as preparation. But there is another path, a path of quiet power, of immense clarity, of unshakable calm. It is the way of the strategist, as taught by the ancient master, Sun Tzu. The strategist understands a fundamental truth that eludes the common mind. One does not prevent betrayal by hunting for the signs of a traitor. One prevents betrayal by cultivating the wisdom to never grant a traitor a position of power in the first place. The focus shifts entirely. The question is no longer a fearful whisper of, "Will this person betray me?" It becomes a calm, dispassionate assessment. Does this person possess the internal discipline, the fundamental character, to be a true ally? Sun Tzu wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." We shall adapt this for our battlefield of trust. The supreme art of strategy is to build a life where betrayal is not a possibility you must fight, but an outcome you have already rendered irrelevant through careful selection. The strategist does not search for lies. They observe the architecture of a person's character. They understand that a single act of betrayal is not a sudden storm that appears from a clear sky. It is the final, inevitable collapse of a poorly constructed building. The cracks in the foundation were always there, visible to anyone who knew where to look. The tools of the strategist are not suspicion and interrogation. They are silence and observation. You do not ask pointed questions to catch someone in a lie. Instead, you create space and watch how they choose to fill it. You observe how they speak of others who are not present. You watch how they handle small responsibilities, how they react to minor inconveniences, how they attribute their failures and their successes. The common mind is an interrogator, shining a harsh light in the subject's eyes, causing them to squint and obscure the truth. The strategic mind is a mirror, perfectly still, reflecting with unflinching clarity the reality of what stands before it. While the fearful person worries about the enemy at the gate, the strategist is the architect who would never build a fortress on unstable ground. The strength of your relationships is not determined by the loyalty you demand, but by the character of those you admit into your circle. This is the beginning of true power, to stop playing defense against the actions of others and to start playing offense in the construction of your own reality. The reactive mind hunts for ghosts, while the strategic mind assesses generals. Betrayal is merely the final predictable defeat of an army led by an undisciplined commander. Comment, I assess character to master this art of perception, and subscribe to discover the 3 fundamental patterns that reveal an unworthy ally. We now move from the abstract realm of philosophy into the tangible world of observation. The strategist does not guess, they discern. To discern, one must have a framework for understanding. I will provide you with that framework. These are not the superficial red flags that occupy the anxious mind. These are deep, structural flaws in the architecture of a person's character, fault lines that, under pressure, will inevitably lead to a total collapse. These 3 patterns of behavior are the principles of an invisible war, waged within the soul of an individual long before they ever bring the conflict to your doorstep. Observe them not with fear, but with the dispassionate clarity of a general surveying the battlefield. For in these patterns, the outcome of a future war is written in the present. The first pattern is the chronic inconsistency between words and actions. Sun Tzu understood that an army without discipline is nothing more than an armed mob, destined for chaos and defeat. He stated, if words of command are not clear and distinct, if orders are not thoroughly understood, the general is to blame. But if his orders are clear, and the soldiers nevertheless disobey, then it is the fault of the officers. Now apply this wisdom to the individual. A person's proclaimed values, their promises, and their declarations of intent are the words of command they issue to themselves. Their actions are the soldiers tasked with carrying out those orders. The individual whose actions consistently and brazenly disobey their own stated words is presiding over a perpetual state of internal mutiny. They are a general with no command over their own troops. Their mind is a realm in civil war. Pay close attention. This inconsistency rarely manifests in grand, dramatic betrayals at first. It reveals itself in the accumulation of countless small skirmishes. They declare a grand ambition to you, then fail to take the smallest step to achieve it. They pledge absolute discretion, then thoughtlessly share a minor confidence with another. They promise their support, but are nowhere to be found when the moment of inconvenience arrives. They speak with conviction about loyalty and honor, yet their daily conduct is a tapestry of minor compromises and convenient omissions. The reactive mind dismisses these as trivial flaws, as simple human imperfection. The strategist sees them for what they are, failed military drills. If a soldier cannot be trusted to clean his rifle or stand his post during peacetime, how can he be relied upon in the fury of battle? In the same way, if a person cannot align their actions with their words in matters of little consequence, to expect them to do so when the stakes are high, when loyalty demands real sacrifice, is not optimism. It is strategic suicide. The great act of betrayal is never a sudden change of character. It is simply the largest and most visible manifestation of the internal chaos that has always been their governing principle. They did not suddenly decide to turn against you. The part of them that values immediate impulse has always been at war with the part that makes promises, and that impulsive faction has been winning small victories for years. The second pattern is the opportunistic pursuit of the path of least resistance. A master strategist understands the concept of terrain. Some ground is vital. It is high, defensible, and offers a commanding view of the entire field of engagement. This ground, the terrain of integrity, of principle, of loyalty, is often difficult to hold. It may be exposed to enemy fire. It may require immense effort to fortify. A worthy general defends this ground at all costs. An unworthy one, however, is seduced by the low-lying, comfortable ground. He will always abandon a difficult strategic position for an easy, tactical advantage. Observe this in the people around you. Watch how they operate when loyalty becomes inconvenient. When a colleague in their absence is unfairly criticized in a meeting, does this person hold the difficult ground of defending them, or do they retreat into the easy terrain of silence to preserve their own standing? When faced with a choice between a difficult truth that maintains integrity and a simple lie that avoids conflict, which path do they take? Their character is like water. It does not possess the strength to choose its own course, but merely flows along the easiest channel carved out by circumstance. They are experts in the calculus of convenience. They will be your most ardent supporter when it costs them nothing and benefits them to be seen by your side. But the moment that allegiance requires them to cross a difficult field, to endure a minor hardship, or to sacrifice a small personal advantage, you will see them quietly withdraw to safer ground. Their commitment is a shallow river that runs strong in fair weather but dries up at the first sign of a drought. Betrayal to this individual is the ultimate expression of this philosophy. It is the final act of abandoning the difficult, strategic high ground, your trust, in exchange for the most convenient path forward for themselves. It is not an act of malice in their eyes. It is an act of simple, undeniable logic. They do not see it as breaking a bond. They see it as taking a sensible detour around an obstacle. That obstacle is you. The third and most telling pattern is the complete absence of personal accountability. Sun Tzu knew that a leader who blames external forces for his own failures is a harbinger of doom. The general who is skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. Victory and defeat, therefore, originate not from the heavens or the earth, but from within the mind of the commander himself. The individual prone to betrayal is a commander who perpetually curses the sky, the ground, and the soldiers for his own poor planning. Their life is a long narrative of being wronged. Listen to the stories they tell. Is there a consistent theme of victimhood? When a project fails, it was because of an unsupportive boss or lazy teammates. When a relationship ends, it was because the other person was unreasonable or unstable. When they are late, it was the fault of traffic. There is always an external agent, an uncontrollable force that is the true author of their misfortune. They have mastered the art of creating a scapegoat. This psychological mechanism is not a quirk. It is their primary survival strategy. It protects their fragile ego from the intolerable burden of their own inadequacy. For a time, you may even be the beneficiary of this, as they complain to you about the injustices inflicted upon them by others. But you must understand this with absolute clarity. Their need for a scapegoat is a hunger that is never satisfied, and when the inevitable friction of any meaningful relationship occurs, when a disagreement arises, when a plan involving the two of you goes awry, that well-practiced, deeply ingrained mechanism will turn its gaze upon you. You will become the unreasonable one. Your expectations will be framed as the source of the pressure. Your actions will be distorted to become the cause of their failure. The ultimate betrayal, when it comes, will be presented not as their own act of disloyalty, but as the logical and necessary consequence of your failings. It is the ultimate act of blame shifting, a final, desperate maneuver to make you the scapegoat for their own character's collapse. They are not just severing a tie, they are writing a history in which you were the villain all along. The knowledge of these patterns is a formidable weapon. Yet like any weapon of great power, it is a danger to the one who wields it without the proper discipline. To know how to identify the structural flaws in others is only the beginning. The far greater challenge lies in mastering the psychological battlefield within yourself. For the first and most crucial victory, as Sun Tzu taught, is the one achieved over your own internal state. Without this inner dominion, your newfound perception will curdle into paranoia, and your strategic insight will be lost in a fog of emotional reactivity. The journey to becoming a true strategist is an inward one, demanding the conquest of your own fears and illusions before you can ever hope to navigate the complex world of human character with clarity. The primary internal war you must wage is against the seductive allure of your own emotions, the fear of betrayal, the anger from past wounds, the pride that refuses to admit a poor judgment of character. These are the insurgents that can topple your entire strategic framework. When you begin to recognize these patterns in someone you have trusted, or perhaps even loved, the immediate emotional response will be a tempest. You will feel the sting of disillusionment, the heat of indignation. You might feel a desperate urge to confront them, to lay out your evidence, to force an admission of their flawed nature. This is the impulse of the common mind, the reaction of the wounded ego. The strategist, however, understands that a turbulent mind cannot produce a clear decision. Sun Tzu advises, He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. The initial recognition of these patterns is precisely the time not to fight. It is the time to become utterly still. Your objective is not emotional vindication, it is strategic clarity. To act on a surge of anger or fear is to charge blindly into an ambush set by your own mind. Instead, you must learn to observe these internal tempests as a general observes a storm from a fortified tower, acknowledging its power, respecting its fury, but refusing to venture out into its chaos. True mastery is the ability to feel the full force of an emotion without surrendering your command to it. This dispassionate calm is not coldness. It is the ultimate form of control. It allows you to continue your observation of the subject without your judgment being clouded by the very disloyalty you are seeking to understand. From this state of inner calm, you begin to cultivate the strategist's ultimate advantage, formlessness. Sun Tzu wrote, "Be subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby, you can be the director of the opponent's fate." In the context of assessing character, formlessness means stripping away your own projections, desires, and expectations from the act of observation. Most people do not see others as they are. They see a reflection of their own hopes. You want a friend to be loyal, a partner to be faithful, a colleague to be reliable. This wanting, this desire, gives your perception a distinct form. It creates a mold, and you unconsciously try to force the other person into it, ignoring all the evidence that they do not fit. To become formless is to shatter that mold. It is to cease wanting someone to be anything other than what their actions consistently demonstrate them to be. You do not judge, you do not condemn, you simply see. This practice requires a kind of brutal honesty with oneself. It means admitting that your initial assessment of someone may have been entirely wrong, based on charm or flattery rather than substance. The ego will fight this admission ferociously. The strategist allows the ego's protests to fade, prioritizing the stark reality revealed by the patterns. When you are formless, you become unreadable to those you are observing. They cannot manipulate your desires because you have set them aside. They cannot play on your fears because you have already mastered them. You are simply a quiet, unwavering presence, a mirror reflecting their true nature back at them, and they are often entirely unaware that any assessment is even taking place. This leads to the final stage of mastering the psychological battlefield, the deliberate construction of your inner circle, your life, your ventures, your peace of mind. These are your kingdom. The wise ruler does not assign critical roles to untested individuals. The strategist understands that every person they allow into their life is a foundation stone upon which their fortress is built. The act of observation is the process of testing the quality of these stones. Each small act of integrity you witness is a sign of solid granite. Every instance of blame shifting, every broken promise, every retreat into the path of least resistance is evidence of crumbling sandstone. The common person builds their life haphazardly, accepting any stone that is offered, only to be shocked when the walls collapse under the first siege. The strategist is a master architect. They understand that the strength of their fortress is determined not by the height of its walls, but by the integrity of its deepest foundations. This is a slow, methodical process. It is not about networking or accumulating contacts. It is about curating allies. Your reputation is not just something you project outward, it is also reflected in the company you keep. To be surrounded by people of discipline, integrity, and accountability elevates your own strategic position before you even make a single move. Their strength becomes a part of your own aura. Conversely, to associate with the undisciplined and the opportunistic is to invite chaos into your camp. Their unreliability becomes a shadow that falls upon you. The mastery of the psychological battlefield, therefore, culminates not in a single decisive confrontation, but in the quiet, ongoing process of selection and curation. You build a reality where betrayal has no fertile ground to grow, because the very soil of your kingdom is composed of unwavering character. You have learned to discern the architecture of a weak character. You have cultivated the inner stillness required to see the world without illusion. Now, before we unveil the strategist's final action, ensure you are subscribed, for the wisdom of decisive execution is reserved for those who have completed their training and are committed to the path of mastery. The moment of knowledge has passed. The time for calculated application is at hand. This is where observation transforms into irreversible advantage, and where you cease to be a spectator of another's flaws and become the sovereign architect of your own peace. The culmination of your observation is not a dramatic confrontation. It is not a bitter argument or a theatrical exposé. These are the crude tools of the emotional amateur, designed to create noise and drama, not to secure a strategic victory. The strategist understands that the most effective maneuvers are often the most silent. The decisive action, the attack that Sun Tzu speaks of, is a swift, precise, and often invisible withdrawal of the most valuable resource you possess, your trust. He wrote, "The quality of a decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Your decision, born from prolonged and dispassionate observation of the three patterns, must be executed with this same falcon-like certainty. When your analysis is complete, and the evidence of a fundamentally unreliable character is irrefutable, the move is not to engage them, but to disengage. It is the strategic removal of this individual from any position of consequence within your life. This is the silent coup. You do not declare war, you simply render their position obsolete. If they are a business partner, you methodically restructure affairs to firewall their influence. If they are a friend, you cease to offer them the currency of your vulnerability and intimate counsel. If they are in your inner circle, you gently and deliberately move them to the distant periphery. This is not an act of punishment. Punishment is an emotional indulgence. This is an act of pure, unemotional strategy. It is the preemptive closing of a gate before the enemy has even massed on the horizon. The individual in question may not even realize what has happened for some time. They will simply find that their access has been revoked, that the channels of influence they once enjoyed have gone silent, and that the warmth of your trust has been replaced by a polite, impenetrable coolness. The greatest power is not to win an argument, but to make the argument entirely unnecessary. This brings us to the aftermath, the consolidation of your victory. The true strategist does not celebrate the removal of a liability. There is no gloating, no, "I told you so." There is only a quiet observation of the new reality that has been created. The goal was never merely to avert a single act of betrayal. The ultimate objective is to establish a lasting peace, a state of being where your energy is no longer consumed by monitoring threats, but is instead liberated for creation, for growth, for purpose. By removing the structurally unsound elements from your life, you create a system that is inherently more stable and resilient. This is the enduring peace Sun Tzu speaks of, not the temporary absence of conflict, but the establishment of a position so formidable and well defended that conflict becomes an irrational choice for any potential adversary. Your reputation for calm, decisive, and non-negotiable standards of character becomes your greatest deterrent. People will learn that your trust is not given freely, but is a fortress one must be worthy of entering. Future challenges are dissuaded not by threats you make, but by the undeniable strength of the inner circle you have built. The peace you secure is not passive. It is an actively maintained state of strategic superiority. It is the quiet hum of a well-oiled machine where every component has been tested and proven to be of the highest quality. This new reality is the true trophy of your campaign. You did not merely dodge a blade, you have engineered a world where such blades can find no purchase. We conclude then with a final transcendent understanding of power. The conventional view sees power as the ability to dominate, to control, to force one's will upon others. This is the power of the petty tyrant, a power that is brittle and requires constant, exhausting maintenance. The strategist's power, the power of Sun Tzu, is of an entirely different nature. It is the power to shape reality itself. It is the ability to understand the deep currents of human character and to navigate them with such skill that conflict becomes superfluous. It is the wisdom to know that the strongest throne is not the one protected by vicious guards, but the one that no one even thinks to challenge. Your ultimate victory is not marked by the defeat of your enemies, but by the creation of an environment where you have no enemies left to fight. You have ceased to play the game of defense and paranoia. You have ascended to become the designer of the game itself, setting the rules of engagement in such a way that only those of integrity and strength can even remain on the board. The supreme power is not to be feared, but to be so fundamentally sound, so strategically unassailable, that you operate in a realm beyond the petty dramas of loyalty and betrayal. You have built the unshakable fortress, not of stone and mortar, but of wisdom, discernment, and profound character, and that is a piece that no enemy can ever take from you.